The two murders, two attempted murders and criminal damage in relation to a dog perpetrated by 49-year-old Jazwell Brown, who comes from Milton Keynes in South England, on none other than Christmas Day 2024, were due to the man's voluntary consumption of cocaine. Brown was living with his partner Joanne Pearson and her dog Tilly at their flat in Newton Lees. The two had been in the relationship for some years, but neighbours described that relationship as unhealthy because both took Class A drugs and often argued a lot. Now viewer, if I've got you hooked on the story so far, do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment when you're ready and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. On Christmas Day 2024, the couple had been smoking crack cocaine in their flat when Brown's son, a 17-year-old called Jake, arrived at around 4:45 p.m. At one point after then, Brown asked Joanne for the crack pipe and she refused to give it to him. They had already, both of them, been smoking lots of crack before this point, please keep that in mind. In response to Joanne's refusal to give him the crack pipe, he picked up a screwdriver and a kitchen knife from a table and repeatedly stabbed Joanne in a frenzied attack, and also stabbed his son, Jake, in the chest when Jake tried to pull him off Joanne. Jake then went and locked himself in the bathroom and could no less hear his dad then stab Tilly the dog. Jake called 999 and while he made the call, he could hear Joanne saying, "You're killing me," and "Tell my kids I love them." The whole incident lasted about 13 minutes. About 6 minutes in, Brown gained entry to the bathroom wielding a baseball bat with which he struck his son repeatedly until he fell to the ground. When Jake got back up again, his father had gone, and then he went and found Joanne lying dead on the floor. After leaving his flat, number 8, Brown went to the neighbouring flat, number 7, across the landing. There, a couple, Tiona Grant and Bradley Latta, were enjoying a quiet Christmas together and had left their door unlocked. In went Brown with his knife and baseball bat and began stabbing Tiona, who died at the scene. A neighbour saw her on the balcony and heard her shout that she couldn't breathe. Bradley tried to pull Brown off, but Brown easily overpowered him and then stabbed him repeatedly as well. By miracle, thankfully, Bradley survived. He managed to get up and he saw Tiona lying face down outside on the landing. He called 999 and while speaking he made his way downstairs to the ground floor where he was found by police as they arrived. He couldn't for the life of him understand why Brown had done what he'd just done. He and Brown were on good terms and they had spoken the day before, at a point when Brown had seemed perfectly normal. Brown then left the building with Tilly the dog on a lead, covered in blood because Brown had stabbed the dog. Brown saw his son Jake outside. He warned the neighbours who were there gathered to take refuge, saying that he would kill them all. He got into his car, leaving the dog behind, and drove off with the headlights off. He got out of the car park onto the road. He was going really fast. Police officers standing in the road tried to stop him. He didn't stop, he just carried on driving. And he was, as I say, not only going fast and had his headlights off, he was ignoring traffic signals. After a car chase, Brown was stopped by armed police officers and forcibly taken from the driver's seat. He was arrested and handcuffed, and this was around 7:11 p.m.
Look up! Show me your hands! Show me your hands!
Stop resisting! Stop resisting! Stop resisting!
His hands had blood all over them and there was a kitchen knife, of course, next to the driver's seat. He made no reply to the caution that was issued to him while he was being arrested. However, he made various comments while he was taken to the police station at Milton Keynes, and he also made really important comments once he got there, really casually saying it wasn't self-defence, it was blatant murder, and also saying that he'd gone crazy and that he wasn't well.
There was a murder in there. You know what I mean? Not self-defence, plain murder. Like a murderer.
Interestingly and surprisingly, Brown in fact had no medical history of mental illness. That said, before committing the crimes that I've just presented, he had earned 10 convictions for 15 offences going back to 1994. These include damaging property and one offence of battering a former partner of his, the mother of his son. That happened back in 2009. On the 17th of June 2025 at Luton Crown Court, Brown was sentenced to 38 years and 194 days, and it covers all of his offences because in this country we tend to award concurrent sentences rather than consecutive sentences. The lead offences were of course the 2 murders.
For the murder of Joanne Pearson, the sentence is imprisonment for life with a minimum term of 38 years and 194 days. For the murder of Tiona Grant, the sentence is imprisonment for life with a minimum term of 38 years and 194 days. Those 2 sentences will run concurrently with each other. For the attempted murder of Jake Brown, the sentence of the court is 18 years imprisonment. For the attempted murder of Bradley Latter, the sentence is 21 years imprisonment. For causing unnecessary suffering to the dog Tilly, the sentence is 9 months imprisonment. For possessing a knife in a public place, the sentence is 18 months imprisonment. The sentences for those last 4 offences will run concurrently with each other and concurrently with the sentences for the 2 murders.
2 murders of innocent victims, 2 attempted murders of innocent victims, and cruelty to an innocent dog, all because one man got himself high on cocaine. On the 6th of April 2024, in Bradford, Yorkshire, 27-year-old Kulsuma Akhtar, who was out walking with her 7-month-old baby son, who she was pushing in a pram, was ambushed and then stabbed 26 times by her estranged husband, Habibur Masum, aged 26. This happened in front of horrified members of the public. After murdering his wife, Masum walked away as if nothing had happened, leaving his own baby son in his pram on the street. Now, why did this graduate of English literature and aspiring YouTuber do what he did? Masum met and married Kulsuma in an unofficial way, mind, in Bangladesh, and then the 2 moved over to the UK in March 2022, at which point Masum had finished his degree in English literature and was wanting to do a course in marketing at the University of Bedfordshire. They travelled on a student visa, and initially Masum lived in Dunstable, but then he moved to Burnley, and that happened at the end of July 2022. At this point though, Kulsuma was living with her brother Akhtar, and he lived in Oldham, and Kulsuma had a job as well. She was working at Park's Bakery. The couple couldn't live together as man and wife until they had an officially recognised marriage celebration. Who the marriage had to be officially recognised by, whether UK law or Muslim law or possibly by some other law, I can't say. I'm ignorant, sorry. By this point of their relationship, summer 2022, things had already started to go wrong between the couple because Masum's visit to Kulsuma in Oldham on the 4th of August 2022 was triggered by Kulsuma's having blocked his messages. On this visit, Masum took with him the knife that he had bought just before. To his frustration though, when he got to the bakery, Kulsuma was nowhere to be seen. Notwithstanding, Kulsuma and Masum had a marriage celebration on the 7th of September 2022 and began to live as husband and wife at 164 Chadderton Way, Oldham. In January 2023, Kulsuma got pregnant. In July 2023, there was an argument between the couple which resulted in Kulsuma leaving the house as she believes that Masum had basically divorced her, which he had done by screaming "Talak" 3 times at her. No idea what that means. I'm sorry for my ignorance. The next documented moment of abuse from Masum against his wife came on the 23rd and the 24th of November 2023, by which point Kulsuma had given birth to a son. Kulsuma was on maternity leave and she received a text from a colleague of hers asking if she was working. Now, Masum was in the habit of checking Kulsuma's phone, and honestly, this man was just so controlling that his wife had to ask him for permission for basically everything, including before she went to meet anyone, including her own family. So the message that she got from a colleague at work enraged Masum and literally sent his jealousy into overdrive. He threw Kulsuma's phone against the wall and assaulted Kulsuma, slapping her face while she held their baby on her lap. He also then held a knife to her throat, stating, quote, "I am going to murder you and the police will be taking me. Tell me what your relationship is with him or I will kill you." That last comment was in relation, of course, to the text message that Kulsuma had received, which he had read. Kulsuma called the police. Masum was arrested and detained, but on subsequently being released, he brazenly defied his bail conditions not to contact Kulsuma directly. Kulsuma, meanwhile, was given a place in a refuge, but she made literally a fatal mistake when she posted a message which allowed her husband to trace her location. Now, even though Masum's one and only goal at this point, such as he professed it in court, was to bring his wife and baby son back home so that the three could be a family again, he went on Tinder to try to hook up. Then he threatened to kill the 5 family members of Kulsuma's that were also living in the UK if he didn't get his family back soon, and he of course shared that threat with his wife. On the 28th of March 2024, because that was the year at this point, Kulsuma showed social services proof that her husband had found out where she was. They responded by arranging for her to move refuge, which was never to be. In the following days, after buying a new phone so that Kulsuma wouldn't recognise his number, Masum sent his wife a number of fake but convincing messages from GP health centres about vaccinations for their son, all in an effort, of course, to try to trick her out of the refuge. He also instructed his brother, who we'll call Abdul, to tell Kulsuma that he was at the airport heading to Spain. Masum's fake GP text didn't get Kulsuma to step out of the refuge, but the fake information that Kulsuma received from Abdul about his brother being about to head off to Spain did. On Saturday the 6th of April, Masum came to Bradford and he got there just after 11:30 a.m. Armed with a knife, he waited for 3.5 hours for Kulsuma to emerge from her refuge. As Kulsuma was convinced that Masum was in Spain, she came out of the refuge with a fellow resident who was referred to in Masum's murder trial as Jordan Palmer. She and Jordan were heading to the local bazaar to buy some henna. When Kulsuma got to the bazaar, what violently abusive, estranged husband of hers should she come face to face with as he emerged from the shop? In a state of shock at seeing her husband so unexpectedly, Kulsuma then tried to head back to the refuge, only for her husband to keep with her. Now the man suddenly pulls out his knife from his pocket and stabs his wife repeatedly in the full view of passers-by. He stabbed her deliberately, targeting her front, and when she was on the ground, he stamped on her before finally cutting her throat. In total, Kulsuma sustained 26 wounds, 15 stab wounds, 1 to her neck, a shocking one through her face, an 8-centimetre deep one to the upper chest, and 12 others. There were also 11 incised wounds. Her injuries included defensive type sharp force injuries to the back of the left hand and the left arm, which were caused, of course, as she tried to fend off the knife. Kulsuma's most significant injury was the stab wound to her neck, which cut the windpipe and her jugular vein. Masum murdered his wife because he was a bully who felt entitled to teach his wife a lesson for escaping from his control. On the 22nd of July 2025, he got life with a minimum of 28 years. Speaking of murderously violent men who can't take being dumped, sorry, I've since learned that I'll be liable for a copyright claim if I bring you the real life call, so I'm just going to read the call. Hello, caller. Hi, I'd like to report a murder. Okay, caller, where are you? Other road. Your name, please? My name is Chris Hemming. Just walk me through what happened. I've killed my ex-partner. I stabbed her to death in the bed. Where is the weapon you've used? It's in the bedroom still and it broke. What is it? A knife? Yes. She grabbed onto it and it just snapped. It's only a porcelain knife, it's not a metal knife. How long ago did you do this? 5 minutes ago. Okay, and you're sure she's still not breathing? No, she's dead. What's her name? Cheryl McKenna. Just talk me through what happened. How did this happen? How did it get to this point? Because she's been lying and cheating and effing other men. I confronted her. She tried to deny it. I'd already seen the evidence. I stabbed and killed her. Is the long and short of it. Can you hear them? Yeah, I can hear the officers. Just stay on the line till I know they're there in the house with you, okay? That was 47-year-old Christopher Hemming from Redditch in the West Midlands, calmly announcing to the 999 call handler that he's just murdered someone. No remorse, no shame. What he didn't disclose to the call handler was that his one and only reason for murdering 44-year-old Cheryl McKenna was that she was his ex-partner, and he found out that very day that he killed her that she was seeing someone new. Hemming had been in a relationship with Cheryl since 2010, but they separated at the beginning of 2024. So he stabbed her several times in the bedroom. You know, this man, he had no remorse. And if you need any more proof of that, after the attack, he called a friend of Cheryl's using Cheryl's phone, where he said, quote, "I wish the camera worked on this phone so I could show you what I've done," unquote. And again, I'm just going to read it to avoid a copyright claim. "Hi, I'm not calling for me, I'm calling for my friend." Basically, her ex-boyfriend had her phone, which is they do live together, but it's very unusual. And he phoned me up and he gave me like a really strange phone call. Like he said, it was just really sinister. He turned around and he said, "I wish the camera worked on this phone so I could show you what I've done." And then I was there like, "What are you on about?" And he was there like, "I wish I could show you." And I was there like, "What's your point?" And he was there like, "You'll see my point, just like she did." It was after that he called the emergency services. They came, they rushed to the scene, but they couldn't save Cheryl's life because, well, the damage was done. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Hemming was arrested inside the address on suspicion of murder and later charged with the same offence, and he's very compliant and calm when he's getting done, because after all, he's just called the 999 people himself. Just because he's all compliant and calm when he's getting arrested, it doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that he was actually sorry for what he'd done. He initially admitted to the police that he killed Cheryl, as we know, but then at court he entered a not guilty plea to murder, and what he pled guilty to instead was, of course, manslaughter. The idea is that manslaughter doesn't usually come with a life sentence, so he would have got a much shorter sentence, of course, than if he'd pled guilty to or been found guilty of murder. Funnily enough though, on the 5th day of the trial, he changed his plea to guilty of murder. Something tells me that he realised that there was no way a jury was going to believe that he killed his ex-partner in anything other than malice and jealousy and anger, and that it was an intentional act. He intended to kill her, meaning it was murder. Manslaughter is when you do it accidentally or you do it because you're not in control of your mind. Any other type of killing is murder. On the 21st of July 2025 at Worcester Crown Court, Hemming got life with a minimum of 15 years. Before strangling his girlfriend to death on the 30th of July 2024 at his flat in Frome, Somerset, southwest England, 33-year-old Keiron Goodwin plied the young lady, whose name was Olivia Wood, with a lethal dose of cocaine. Olivia Wood was 29 and came from Liverpool. She worked as an ecologist. She and Goodwin had only been together for 3 months, but yet in that time, Goodwin had become massively controlling of her, forcing her to take drugs, for instance, perform sex acts on camera for other men, and sleep with a stranger. On the night that Goodwin killed Olivia had packed her stuff and was planning to leave him. That said, she had never formally moved in with Goodwin, but she had spent lots and lots of time with him at his flat in Frome. While admitting to being coercively controlling towards Olivia, Goodwin denied her murder. He has in fact never given an explanation for Olivia's death and didn't give evidence at his trial. Goodwin was also sentenced for a string of offences against 3 former girlfriends of his, and the things he did to them were exactly the same as the things he did to Olivia, forcing them to take drugs and sleep with strangers. Olivia herself never spoke to anyone about her unhappiness with her relationship with Goodwin, but there were notes on her phone that revealed just how deeply unhappy she was. At 2:50 a.m. on the 30th of July 2024, Goodwin called 999 to say that Olivia wasn't breathing, but while he did so, he was simultaneously deleting hundreds of potentially incriminating photos and videos from his phone. That was revealed at trial. A post-mortem examination revealed that Olivia had a potentially fatal level of cocaine in her system, and the hyoid bone in her neck was fractured, and that's an injury that's often caused by strangulation. When he jailed Goodwin for life, and the minimum term I'm about to reveal, the judge, who's called Judge Picton, and this was at Bristol Crown Court, said, quote, "You are a manipulative, determined, misogynistic, selfish narcissist and a truly evil individual. The term evil is not a superlative to be used lightly, but in your case it is thoroughly deserved," unquote. In addition to giving Goodwin a life sentence for Olivia's murder, the judge also gave him life sentences with minimum terms of 18 years for offences against his former girlfriends. Goodwin's 3 other victims told the BBC that his relationships would always follow the same pattern: love bombing, adoration, and then telling them that he was struggling with his mental health. He would then pressure them into handing over their savings to support him, most of which he would spend on cocaine. He would then systematically isolate them from their friends and family, bully them into taking drugs and into sleeping with other men and performing sex for strangers on camera, all for his own selfish pleasure. They said that the deep sense of shame and confusion that they felt made it impossible for them to seek help. In a victim impact statement, one of the victims said, "I lost everything I cared about by being with Goodwin. When I finally left him for good, there was almost no trace of the old me left." Goodwin was also convicted of trying to strangle the victim when she tried to leave him, although at the time he pressured her into dropping the complaint to the police. On the 8th of May 2025 at Bristol Crown Court, Goodwin's minimum term of his life sentence was set at 35 years. It's the 22nd of January 2025 and the place is Plymouth in Devon, southwest England. 53-year-old ex-doorman Paul Butler is just about done staring prolongedly at the office at Plymouth University where 48-year-old nursing lecturer Claire Chick, who, in September 2024, walked out on him only weeks after they got married, is based. Off he goes then, resurfacing at 6:50 p.m. at the Starbucks in Mutley Plain before heading over to a Sainsbury's where he purchases 3 knives, 2 of which he soon discards. It's now 8:50 p.m. and people are calling the emergency services for the woman that they have just found on West Hoe Road, covered in blood but still alive. At 10:30 p.m, Butler orders food at the McDonald's at the Koi Pool Retail Park. When staff inquire as to why he's doing so much bleeding, he answers that someone punched him. Now, at 7:30 p.m. the following day, Butler, who has escaped to the Premier Inn Hotel in Liskeard, is being placed under arrest at that hotel on suspicion of murder. Miss Chick, the woman found seriously injured on West Hoe Road the day before, having died in Derryford Hospital the night before as a result of the 22 stab wounds that her estranged husband inflicted on her. It turns out that Miss Chick, who had 2 adult daughters as well as grandchildren, met Butler at a particularly vulnerable point in her life, to be exact, not long after the collapse of her first marriage. This is what led her to move in 2021 into the street where Butler also lived, the two getting together as a couple in the summer of 2022. While Miss Chick could see the serious flaws to the man's character, leading her to have second thoughts even about accepting his offer of marriage, as she had since done, in June 2024, she went ahead and married him anyway, to her total and immediate regret. Butler's controlling and obsessive behaviour towards Miss Chick reached something of a peak during their very honeymoon, you see. Miss Chick filing with the police the first of her numerous complaints against her husband no more than 2 months later. Butler's stalking and harassment of her was what had prompted that initial police report of hers, the university lecturer having since moved out of the conjugal home and installed herself in a flat on West Hoe Road. Despite having been arrested in response to Miss Chick's allegations, being arrested and then being bailed, soon becoming a routine for the man in fact, in November 2024, Butler assaulted Miss Chick. Then, the following month, Without Miss Chick's knowledge or consent, the man installed a tracking app on her car, jealous as he had become of the new relationship that Miss Chick had entered into. Around this time, Miss Chick became too afraid of Butler to even leave her home, having long since found the police completely useless where her bully of a husband was concerned. When she told them that he was ignoring their order for him not to contact her, for instance, they did nothing, which meant that she had to endure Butler's endless threatening voice notes, phone calls and emails. Likewise, the police didn't lift a finger when she reported her psycho husband's act as standing outside her university and staring up at her office, the day before Butler's act of office gazing, if you will, in her 6th and final statement to the police. She declared, quote, "I honestly feel like Butler will kill me if further action is not taken. I am constantly afraid of leaving my house. I am very fearful of what he has done to me and what he will do," unquote. Some of the stab wounds that Butler inflicted on Miss Chick when, after he waited for her at her back door on the evening of the 22nd of January 2025, she eventually came out, were as deep as 10 centimetres and some penetrated the victim's sternum and ribs. According to witnesses, the screams that Miss Chick made while Butler stabbed her were nothing less than heart-wrenching. When Miss Chick's new partner, Paul Maxwell, who had been out running when Butler started the attack, returned, he first found himself witnessing the murderous assault and then being chased by the perpetrator, who shouted at him the words, quote, "I'll fucking do you too," unquote. On the point of his wanting to murder Mr. Maxwell, during his subsequent visit to McDonald's, the perpetrator told a friend, quote, "I am pretty certain I have ended her. I loved her so much. I meant to get him, but fuck him. I killed her. I tried to get him, but he ran." Having pleaded guilty to Miss Chick's murder on the 25th of April 2025 at Plymouth Crown Court, Butler got 27 years. And what a fucking savage the man is. In the evening of the 16th of November 2024, a 21-year-old waitress from East Kilbride near Glasgow in Scotland answers a text from her boyfriend that comes while she's on shift to say that she's sorry that she can't be with him just then and that they'll have dinner together when she gets home. 2 days later, police find the young woman in her flat with her head in an upright position tucked under her left arm. Other parts of her body have been cut away as well, but the multiple stab wounds that she has suffered are no less evident. Phoenix Spencer Horn, aspiring midwife and thoroughly cherished daughter and granddaughter, fell for the wrong man. And 27-year-old Ewan Methven had actually kept his girlfriend's dead body in their flat for 2 days before calling the police. While Phoenix's friends describe Phoenix as warm-hearted and responsible, if somewhat shy, Phoenix's own mother says that Phoenix lit up any room that she entered. Having grown up with her mother and her grandparents, Phoenix used to call or text her mother every day, her main reason for getting a job after leaving school rather than going to university, having been to provide her mother with financial support. While she found her waitressing work at Strathaven Hotel and at the Roasted Cafe in Strathaven, South Lanarkshire, tiring, she always had a smile on her face at work and was a very well-liked employee. Keep in mind, however, that Phoenix's burning ambition was to become a midwife. She loved babies, she loved people, and she had the patience of someone twice her age. At the age of 19, Phoenix meets, at a party, a handsome young postman by the name of Ewan Methven. And the next thing that anyone knew, she was in a committed relationship with the 25-year-old. To outsiders, however, the two seem markedly mismatched, Phoenix being a notably warm and bubbly person, while her boyfriend comes across as distinctly guarded and reserved. Phoenix, however, insists to her friends that when she's with Ewan, she feels seen. Her boyfriend listens to her in a way that no man ever has before, making her feel as if she's literally found her soulmate.
This is what their love looked like on social media.
God, I never loved one like you.
The picture-perfect story where Phoenix Spencer Horn talked about finding her soulmate in postman Ewan Methven.
Sometime later, however, most probably after the point when she moves in with Ewan, she offers her friends a rather different report of her boyfriend, the man's jealousy and controlling behaviour towards her being just the start of it. Her boyfriend systematically checks her phone, won't let her go out on her own, complains when she works the night shift, and hates that she interacts with customers of the opposite sex. With his vastly mistrusting and paranoid mind, Ewan accuses Phoenix of cheating, and then he cries and begs her not to leave him. The following diary entry of his shows up these very obsessive feelings of his for his girlfriend. Quote, "I can't stand her working the night shift. She's leaving me. I have to do something. I have to keep her." Unquote. Ewan has the markedly childish habit of freezing his girlfriend out for hours on end, only to have, when he's finished ignoring her, a massively angry outburst. Neighbours are forever hearing the couple shouting, but we should all understand that on no occasion are the police summoned to the couple's address. Ewan has since unravelled as a sufferer of anxiety and depression. He starts taking cocaine, alcohol and steroids, sometimes all at the same time in something of a high-powered cocktail, in his effort to bulk up, believing as he does that this will boost his confidence. Seeing her boyfriend spiralling into mania, substance abuse and psychologically abusive behaviour towards her herself, Phoenix starts to distance herself from her family and friends because she has chosen to stand by her man. She naively deems that she owes it to Ewan to help him through his temporary mental crisis, as she sees it. What she also does, though, is to work longer hours and take on extra shifts, less for the money and more for the escape from her boyfriend that being at work affords her. What Ewan texts his girlfriend on the evening of the 16th of November 2024, while she's at work, is the message, "I feel lonely." The man who delivers the takeaway that Ewan orders after Phoenix promises him that they will have their dinner together reports to police, after they discover Phoenix's murder, that Ewan's behaviour was, at that moment, perfectly normal. Not appearing in any way drunk, high or out of control, Ewan gave the man no cause for concern whatsoever. Likewise, at 9:37 p.m, meaning around an hour and 37 minutes after the delivery guy called by, having since arrived home, Phoenix herself texts her mother to say that she's having dinner with Ewan. Around 13 minutes past midnight, a neighbour from downstairs suddenly hears, coming from Ewan's and Phoenix's flat, a loud thud followed by hurried footsteps. A fitness app on Ewan's own phone, meanwhile, is, at this same moment, recording a sudden spike in Ewan's physical activity. Whatever took place in the couple's flat at that time, given that Ewan has, in the moments that have since passed, been looking for a cocaine dealer, and given that he's now on his 170th visit to a porn site, and given that now, just after 8 a.m. in the morning, Phoenix has just texted her mother to say that she's just woken up, it can't have been anything too serious. And again, a few hours on, Phoenix sends her mother another message saying, quote, "all good," unquote. If there was anything wrong with either Phoenix or Ewan, how likely is Ewan to be casually driving his girlfriend's Vauxhall Corsa around exactly as he's just been captured doing on CCTV? It's now the morning of the 18th of November 2024 and where is Phoenix? The young woman's manager at work is wondering, as this lively and chirpy employee of his hasn't turned up, which isn't like her at all. Furthermore, not only has she not phoned in, she isn't answering any of the manager's calls or texts either, and even more eerily, she's now not even reading her own mother's text messages to her, let alone answering her mother's many calls. What on earth is going on with Phoenix then? Why isn't she turning up to work and why is she not answering her mother? And I'm sorry, but what the hell is Ewan doing? Doesn't he know that his girlfriend, you know, the one that he can't stop snooping on, checking her phone every 2 minutes and not letting her go out without him, is meant to be at work at this time, and that, for some reason, she seems to be ignoring the calls and texts that she's been getting from her very own mother? Hang about. The man's just picking up the phone now. It's the afternoon of the 18th. He's dialing 999 and then asking for the police, and in answer to the operator's question of why he killed his girlfriend, an act that Ewan has just announced to the person. He's explaining that his prior consumption of cocaine, alcohol and steroids, which he believes had all been spiked, sent him into a psychotic state, which in turn led him to do what he did. He adds that, having no memory whatsoever of committing his horrendous acts, he no less now feels highly remorseful of his acts. Ewan's acts, if you want the detail, include the stabbing that he did to his girlfriend's chest, abdomen, neck, bottom and face. One of the stab wounds that Phoenix sustained to her chest caused the acute hemorrhagic shock, massive internal bleeding that is, that killed her. After doing all that stabbing, leaving his victim with no fewer than 20 stab wounds, including as many as 10 to her face, Ewan then strangled his girlfriend using either his hands or a towel before dragging her into the bathroom and literally chopping her head off. He then had a go at hacking off Phoenix's right wrist and right ankle and also attempted to slice her body in half. In explanation of his act of moving Phoenix's body from the bathroom to the passageway, which is where the body's lying when the police call in, he told the police, quote, "I could not stay here with her like that. I tried to dismember her. I moved her from the bath and put her there," unquote. 2 of the 3 knives that the perpetrator used on Phoenix were found lying next to the woman's butchered body. The 3rd was found in the bathroom. There was blood on the flooring and on the walls, which Ewan had evidently tried to scrub away before giving up. By the time he called the police, he had lived with the mutilated corpse of his girlfriend for more than 36 hours. His next door neighbour was, as you might expect, thoroughly horrified to learn the source of the nasty smell that she had coming into her kitchen between the 17th and the 18th of November.
Neighbour Tony Brown lived next door.
Did you hear any noises or bangs?
I had a bad smell in my house the early hours of the morning she was found, basically just before I went to my bed. There was a bad smell in my kitchen, basically where the walls joined together. Horrific, absolutely just, it gives me shivers thinking about it, if I'm honest.
Ewan's murderous acts of violence against Phoenix from just after midnight on the 17th of November 2024 were, in fact, his one and only moment of physical violence against his girlfriend. Phoenix's post-mortem uncovered no evidence of any prior injuries to the young woman. That said, the pathologist reported that Phoenix's was one of the most brutal and cold-blooded cases of murder that he had seen for decades. Furthermore, Ewan's blaming his acts on his consumption of his favourite cocktail, the cocaine, the drink and the steroids, was contradicted by both the delivery rider's testimony and by Phoenix's own text message to her mother that came an hour and 37 minutes after that. Similarly, the perpetrator's post-murder behaviour, including his acts of mutilating his victim's body, trying to buy cocaine, watching porn vid after porn vid, and of course, forging text messages to Phoenix's mother to buy himself some time, aren't in keeping with the behaviour of someone who doesn't know what he's doing. I think you long gathered that the text messages from Phoenix's phone that Phoenix's mother, Alison Spencer being her name, received on the 17th of November came from Ewan. Alison, though, isn't stupid. She knew, even before she heard from the police, that there was something seriously wrong where her daughter was concerned, since the text messages that she received from her daughter's phone on the said date didn't sound anything like her daughter. At 8:12 a.m. on the 17th of November, in fact, before sending the first of his 2 fake texts to Alison, Ewan actually texted Alison as himself to say that Phoenix hadn't yet got up and that he would get her to text her mother as soon as she did get up. But of course, he couldn't keep up the pretense via fake text that his girlfriend was still alive for very long. When, on the 17th of June 2025, Ewan attended Glasgow High Court. He pleaded guilty to his charge of first-degree murder. His defence lawyer, Tony Graham, offered no actual defence, but rather related the remorse that, according to him, his client had shown, saying, quote, "Those related to Phoenix are likely to regard Ewan Methven as the personification of evil. He will not be able to forgive himself," unquote. Sorry, but I find that quite a narcissistic and selfish and insulting statement on Ewan's part, because it seeks to make Ewan himself look like some sort of victim. The man doesn't deserve forgiveness from anyone, including himself, so he's got no right to even mention the matter. Ewan's sentencing took place a month later, on the 14th of July 2025, because, as is quite normal, the judge needed time to both read pre-sentence reports relating to the defendant and to literally work out how long to give the defendant in accordance with sentencing guidelines and precedents, that working out then requiring research. In his sentencing statement, Lord Matthews commented, quote, "You were a trusted member of Phoenix's family, but you betrayed that trust and robbed Phoenix of life in the cruelest way. I have rarely read such outpourings of grief as are contained in the victim impact statements from her family, who have endeavoured to put into words what can never truly be encapsulated. The sadness and the deep sense of loss that they all feel and will continue to feel thanks to what you did. Not content with what you had done to Phoenix, you robbed her of all dignity in death by decapitating her and trying to dismember her in an attempt to defeat the ends of justice. The way you treated this innocent young woman after her death meant that her family didn't even have the comfort of saying goodbye to her." Unquote.
At 21 years and 134 days old, she was standing at the threshold of what should have been a long and fulfilling life. I have this morning seen a letter written by you, but it answers none of the questions which must be plaguing the family. You blame the effect of substances, but that is no excuse. I know that nothing I can say or do, and no punishment I can inflict, will ever be enough.
Phoenix Spencer Horn was a person who had the right not to be harmed, especially not in her own home, by someone that she trusted intimately. She was a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, a cousin, a niece and a friend. She'll now never get to be a midwife, never get to have children of her own, never get to make her mother a grandmother again, or make her grandparents great-grandparents again. And it's all because of the evil and murderous acts of one evil, murderous, selfish and childish man that she made the mistake of falling for. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.